The moment I whispered those 4 words, I knew my life would never be the same. Drink this now, trust me. I said it with a calm voice, but inside my heart was beating so fast I could barely hear anything else. I slid the fresh coffee across the counter, replacing the poisoned one before anyone noticed. My smile stayed in place the way years of waiting tables had trained me, but I felt my whole world tilt as I looked into the eyes of the man who was supposed to die tonight. My name is Evelyn Pierce, and that Tuesday night in Chicago was supposed to be boring. Rain pounded on the windows of Moonlight Cafe, and the neon sign outside flickered in the storm. Work was slow, just how I liked it. I was counting tips and thinking about the photography classes I was trying to save for. Life felt predictable, safe, ordinary. Jack Carson walked in at exactly 10:47, like he did every week. He always chose the same booth, the one facing both doors. He always ordered black coffee with apple pie. He looked like someone from a magazine in his expensive suit, quiet and composed. Nothing like the usual night crowd of taxi drivers and nurses on break, but tonight he seemed tense, tapping his fingers against the table. I noticed everything. I always notice everything. My dad taught me that before he died. But nothing prepared me for what happened next. At 11:23, the front door opened, and 3 men in dark coats walked in, rain dripping from their sleeves. The moment they stepped inside, the air changed. I felt it in my bones. They sat in the booth closest to the kitchen, but their eyes kept drifting to Jack, like wolves watching a deer. I walked to them with my notepad and a smile, but I could feel their energy pressing against my skin. The biggest one ordered 3 coffees without even glancing at me. I turned toward the kitchen, and that was when I heard it. Poison. Boss's nephew. The words were quiet, meant to be private, but I caught them. My heart froze, but my steps didn't. Inside the kitchen window, I could see them watching Jack, whispering, planning. One man's coat lifted just enough for me to see the shape of a gun under it. My father had been a cop. He always told me to trust my instincts. Right now, they were screaming. I knew someone was about to die. And I knew that if I did nothing, his body would be lying across my freshly mopped linoleum floor. A cold wave rolled through me as I stood at the counter. My hands moved on their own. I made Jack's usual refill, grabbed a clean mug, and walked straight toward him. He looked up when I placed the fresh coffee in front of him. I leaned down as if wiping the table, my voice barely a breath. Drink this now, trust me. For a moment he just stared at me, dark eyes sharp and unreadable. His question came low, controlled. Why should I trust you? I didn't blink. I had no time for fear. I kept wiping the clean table, my voice steady, even as my stomach twisted, because those men behind me just picked out a poison for you. And I'm not letting anyone die in my cafe tonight. His eyes flickered with something I didn't understand. Not fear. Something colder, stronger. He took a slow sip of the coffee I gave him without breaking eye contact. Behind us, chairs scraped. The 3 men stood. Then everything happened at once. The tallest one walked toward me with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Excuse me, miss, we ordered coffee." Before I could answer, Jack's hand wrapped around my wrist. His touch was steady, strong, gentle, but firm enough to freeze me in place. "She's busy assisting me," he said in a calm voice that cut through the room like a blade. The man's face changed when recognition hit him. All 3 of them paled at the same time. "Mr. Carson, we didn't know it was you." "Mr. Carson." I didn't understand yet, but I felt danger rising like a tide. Jack slowly stood. His smile was cold enough to make my stomach twist. "Yet you came here for me," he said softly. Sirens wailed outside, the sound growing closer. The 3 men shifted, confused, realizing they were already trapped. That was when one of them lunged. I saw metal flash. I opened my mouth to scream, but Jack moved faster than anyone I'd ever seen. His coffee mug smashed into the man's temple before the gun could rise. The man crashed to the floor, everything blurred. Shouts, police lights flashing through rain. Jack pulling me toward the back exit, his hand warm and steady on my spine. "You need to come with me," he said. You just made enemies you don't understand. We burst into the alley, rain hitting us like sheets of ice. Who are you? I asked, breathless. Jack stopped beneath the doorway, rain streaming off his suit. His eyes locked onto mine with an intensity that made my heart stutter. I'm the man whose life you just saved, he said, which means I'm responsible for yours now. A black SUV rolled into view. A huge man stepped out, as silent as a shadow. The whistleblower boss? He asked. Jack guided me inside. She's an unexpected variable, he said. And as the SUV pulled away into the storm, I realized one thing. My ordinary life was over. My world had just changed forever. And I didn't know if I'd survive what came next. The SUV moved through the storm like a dark bullet, the wipers fighting to keep up with the heavy rain. I sat pressed against the leather seat, my uniform still damp, my heart pounding so loudly I wondered if Jack could hear it. Streetlights streaked past the windows in blurred flashes. Every turn felt like it was pulling me farther from the life I knew. I can't just disappear, I finally said. My voice shook even though I tried to hide it. I have a roommate, classes in the morning. People will notice if I don't come home. Jack didn't look away from me. His calm was almost unsettling. He reached into his pocket and handed me his phone. Tell them you're staying with a friend, he said. 3 days. That's all we need. 3 days. My heart raced. But I took the phone. His eyes stayed on me while I called my roommate, and I could feel his attention like heat on my skin. I made up a story about covering shifts for a sick coworker. My voice somehow stayed steady. 3 days, I repeated after I hung up, handing the phone back. Now tell me why I'm in this car instead of talking to the police. Jack finally sighed, the first sign of tension I had seen in him. Because the men who tried to kill me tonight work for someone powerful, he said. Someone with police on their payroll who wouldn't survive the night. Theo, the giant man who had picked us up, glanced back at me in the rearview mirror. It wasn't threatening. It felt more like caution. The SUV descended into an underground garage beneath a plain office building. No guards, no cameras, just shadows. Jack stepped out and held the door for me. Come on. You're safe only as long as you're with me. The elevator opened without him even touching a button. When the doors revealed a massive penthouse with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a storm-lit Chicago skyline, I almost forgot how terrified I was. The space was elegant, expensive, and strangely quiet. This is where you'll stay tonight, Jack said, walking toward a sleek desk covered in glowing screens. I can keep you safe here. And tomorrow? I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. He stopped typing and looked at me. His eyes seemed darker in the dim light. Tomorrow we figure out who ordered the hit. I crossed my arms. You already know, don't you? His jaw flexed once. My Uncle Richard. Shock rolled through me. Your own uncle tried to kill you? Power motivates people more than blood, he said quietly. He showed me to a private suite stocked with clothes, toiletries, everything a person might need if their life suddenly exploded. The moment he left, I collapsed on the bed with shaking hands. Reality crashed over me so hard I felt dizzy. I had saved a stranger tonight. Not just any stranger. A Mafia boss's nephew. A man who moved like a shadow through danger. A man whose life I had stepped into with one reckless choice. In the shower, hot water washed away the rain. The blood I didn't realize had splattered onto my sleeve, the fear sitting in my chest like a stone. But it couldn't wash away the truth. Those men had seen my face. They could find where I lived. They could. I forced my hands to stop shaking long enough to turn off the water and pull on the soft clothes left in the suite. When I finally lay down, sleep came in broken pieces filled with dark eyes, gold teeth, and the sound of shattering coffee mugs. Morning sunlight woke me. The windows, which had been opaque last night, were now clear. Chicago glowed under a pale sky. Jack sat at the kitchen island, reading something on a tablet. He didn't look up when he said, "Coffee's fresh if you want some." I approached slowly, unsure how to behave around a man who crushed assassins with coffee mugs like it was routine. He handed me a mug and our fingers brushed. A spark shot up my arm so fast I almost dropped it. "I suppose you figured out who wants you dead," I said, testing his reaction. Jack finally looked at me. His expression was calm, but his eyes were darker today. "Richard arranged it. He's been stealing from our legitimate businesses to keep the old operations alive." I blinked. "So I'm stuck in a mafia war." Quote, "You're the only witness who can contradict their version of events," he said. "That makes you a target." My stomach dropped. "Why not send me away? You have people, money. You could hide me anywhere." Jack held my gaze. Something unreadable flashed across his face. "I did consider that," he admitted. "I even arranged new identification and an escape route to Vancouver." I stared at him. Escape route, new identity, my life evaporating like smoke. "And if I said yes," I asked. "You'd vanish," Jack said softly. "Safe but gone, forever." I set my mug down. My hands finally stopped shaking. "That won't solve your problem," I said. "Your uncle will just try again." He studied me like he was seeing me for the first time, as if he was recalculating everything he thought he knew. "This isn't your battle," he said. "It became my battle the second I stopped that poison." I answered. A soft chime echoed through the penthouse. Theo entered with a folder. Jack skimmed the papers. His expression hardened. "My uncle scheduled a family meeting tonight to announce my death." Quote. He looked at me, his voice lower, quieter, more honest than before. "I need your help." I didn't expect what happened next. Jack stepped closer, his hand lifting to my cheek in a gentle touch that made my breath stop. His thumb brushed my skin with surprising warmth. "Evelyn," he said softly, "you're the only person he won't see coming." I felt my heart twist in a way that had nothing to do with fear, and everything to do with him. I had no idea how I ended up standing in front of the executive club hours later, wearing a black cocktail dress that didn't belong to me and heels I wasn't sure I could walk in for more than 10 minutes. The building glowed like a jewel in Chicago's financial district, the kind of place I used to pass by on my way to the bus stop, wondering who the people inside were. Now I was one of them. Jack stood beside me, calm and composed in another perfectly tailored suit. His quiet confidence steadied me more than I wanted to admit. His hand brushed the small of my back as we stepped into the private elevator, sending a warm pulse through my chest. "Remember," he said softly, "you're my guest, nothing more. Observe everything, and don't leave my sight." "I won't," I whispered. The elevator doors opened to a dining room filled with powerful people and carefully crafted smiles. Every conversation fell slightly quiet the moment Jack entered. Eyes shifted, bodies stiffened, respect, fear, calculation. I felt the energy shift around him like he carried gravity itself. Richard Carson stood at the head of the long table, tall, distinguished, cold smile. His gray suit looked expensive enough to buy my entire building. His eyes sharpened when he saw Jack, and then sharpened even more when he saw me. "Nephew," he said in a warm voice that didn't match the tension in his jaw, "we feared you might not join us." "Family obligations always take priority," Jack replied smoothly, guiding me toward the two open seats. Richard's gaze slid over me with practiced politeness. "And your companion?" Jack didn't miss a beat. "Evelyn Pierce, a business consultant assisting with our hospitality acquisitions." Quote, I felt his hand find mine under the table, grounding me, steadying me. Richard's eyes lingered on our joined hands a second too long. Dinner started with servers moving through the room in silent efficiency. Wine poured, small plates served, conversations layered with false warmth. I could feel the tension weaving through the table like a hidden thread. My job was simple, watch. And I watched everything. Who deferred to Richard? Who watched Jack with worry? Who pretended not to notice the silent war happening between uncle and nephew? But my attention kept drifting to one waiter in particular. Older than the others. Too controlled. Too careful when approaching Jack's setting. The way his hand hovered near the wine glass sent a cold rush through me. Poison. Again. My pulse spiked. I knew I had only seconds. Jack lifted his wine. I reached for my water glass and knocked it into his with a loud clatter. "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry," I said quickly, leaning forward to dab at the spill. My heart pounded like a drum. Under the table, I pressed my foot against his, the signal we agreed on. He set the wine down without touching it again. Richard watched us with pinched irritation. "Not enjoying our selection tonight?" he asked. Jack smiled politely. "Early meeting tomorrow. Better stay clear-minded." Dinner continued, but the feeling in the room sharpened. People talked, but their eyes tracked every move Jack made. I could feel danger tightening around us like a rope. Then dessert arrived, and everything changed. Richard stood and said, "Jack, a private word. There's a sensitive matter we must discuss before the quarter closes." Jack squeezed my hand once under the table, a silent promise. He followed his uncle toward a door marked private. The moment it closed behind them, I counted to 30 and rose from my seat. No one stopped me. Everyone was too focused on keeping their masks in place. I walked down the hallway and heard raised voices before I even reached the door. "You're weak," Richard snarled. "Too soft. Your father would be ashamed." I froze. Their voices hit me like physical blows. Jack's voice came next, calm but edged with steel. "I'm giving this family a future. You want to drag us backward." A crash sounded. My breath caught. I pushed the door open a crack, and my stomach dropped. 2 bodyguards were holding Jack's arms behind him. Richard circled him with a syringe in hand. A real one, filled with something dark. Poison again. This time direct. I didn't think. My body moved on instinct. I threw the door open so hard it slammed into the wall. "Jack!" I shouted. One guard spun toward me. I jabbed my elbow into his stomach, just like my dad taught me when I was little. He doubled over with a gasp. The second guard grabbed for me, but Jack used the distraction to slam his head backward into the man's face. Blood sprayed. The guard stumbled. Richard lunged at Jack, syringe raised. I grabbed a crystal decanter and hurled it at Richard's feet. It shattered, sending shards everywhere. He slipped and crashed forward onto the glass, screaming when the shards sliced into his shoes. The syringe skittered across the floor toward me. The door burst open again, but this time it was Theo and 4 armed security members. They moved with precise coordination, disarming Richard and his guards in seconds. Jack wiped blood from his lip and looked at his uncle with a cold, deadly expression. Richard's face twisted. "You planned this," he spat. "You knew." Jack straightened his tie. "The board never voted, Uncle," they answered me. Richard stared as everything he schemed for fell apart in front of him. I stood there shaking, my breath tight, heart racing. Then Jack turned to me, and everything inside me stopped. He crossed the room in 2 strides, cupped my face gently, and rested his forehead against mine. "That wasn't part of our plan," he murmured, his voice low and warm. "But you saved my life, again." My hands gripped the lapels of his suit, steadying myself. "The part where I saved you," I whispered, "or the part where you almost got injected by something that definitely wasn't vitamin C?" A soft laugh escaped him, close to my lips. "Both." We left the room together as the Carson family watched our return with stunned eyes. Jack guided me to the head of the table, his hand firm and warm at my back. Everything had changed, and every single person in that room knew it. Back at the penthouse later that night, everything finally hit me. The danger, the chaos, the fact that I had walked straight into a Mafia war wearing borrowed heels. I paced the living room while Jack poured 2 glasses of whiskey from a crystal decanter. The city lights glowed beyond the windows, but I barely saw them. "What happens now?" I asked, accepting the glass even though my hands were still trembling. "Your uncle is gone, but his people are still out there." Jack sat across from me, his back straight but his eyes tired. "Now I finish what I started," he said. "I turn this family legit. No more poison, no more assassins, no more dirty money." It sounded impossible. It also sounded exactly like the kind of thing Jack Carson would attempt and somehow achieve. And me? I asked, my voice small in the huge room. Do I just go back to the cafe? Pretend none of this ever happened? His eyes flicked to mine, sharp and searching. Do you want to? I opened my mouth, but no words came out. Because I honestly didn't know. I couldn't unsee what I'd seen. I couldn't pretend I hadn't saved his life. Twice. And I couldn't ignore the strange connection forming between us, something intense and terrifying and magnetic. I set my glass down with a quiet click. I want something real, I said finally. If I stay, it can't be as your employee. Or your shield. I want honesty, respect, partnership. He sat very still, like my words hit some locked part of him. Then he leaned forward, elbows on his knees, his voice low. Most people in your position would ask for money, he said, or protection, or both. I shook my head. I want the truth. Slowly, something in his expression softened, something wary, almost vulnerable. Partnership with me, he said quietly. That would mean seeing everything. The legal businesses, the ones we're cleaning, the ones that still need cleaning. All of it. I can handle complicated, I whispered. And I meant it. His eyes moved to my lips for a breath. Then he looked away as if catching himself. Evelyn, you changed everything in 48 hours. We didn't speak after that. Not because the conversation was over, but because something deeper settled between us. A promise. A silent commitment neither of us dared to name out loud. 3 months passed faster than I ever expected. One morning, I stood on the penthouse balcony, adjusting the lens on my camera, as sunrise painted the city in warm gold. Photography wasn't just a dream anymore. Jack had funded my first gallery showing, filled with my city shots. People actually bought my work. Not because of his name, because of me. The sliding door opened behind me. Jack walked out, holding a mug of coffee made exactly the way I liked. The Richardson merger paperwork arrived, he said, handing me the mug, another step toward full legitimacy. How many does that make? I asked, smiling. 8, he said, leaning against the railing beside me. Profits are up. Violence is down. My grandfather would roll in his grave. I laughed softly. Theo appeared with a tablet, giving his report like he always did. Last of Richard's old loyalists agreed to the amnesty deal, he said. They'll testify if needed. Jack nodded. Schedule their meeting for Thursday. Theo disappeared again, leaving us in the quiet morning air. I glanced at my left hand. At the ring sparkling there. Sometimes I still couldn't believe it. You know, I said with a small smile, your family is still whispering about us. Jack slipped an arm around my waist and pulled me close. They'll adapt, he said. His voice held a warmth I never heard from him when we first met. They always do. A breeze lifted my hair. Behind us, the city hummed to life. I invited Anna from the cafe to the wedding. I admitted. She was always kind to me. Jack nodded. Invite anyone you want. Whatever life we build now, it belongs to both of us. My heart melted at that. At him. At the way he had changed, not for me, but with me. The phone in his pocket buzzed. Jack ignored it for once. Instead, he rested his forehead against mine, his voice dropping to a whisper. I never thought the words, "Drink this now, trust me," would change my life, he said. But they did. You did. His thumb brushed my cheek. You saved more than my life that night, Evelyn. You saved me from becoming a man I never wanted to be. I threaded my fingers through his, feeling my chest tighten in the best way. We saved each other, I whispered back. His lips curved into a slow smile, the kind he only gave me, the kind that felt like forever.